Everybody, welcome to the Brett Luter Show. This is episode 138. I'm super excited to get to talk to this gentleman. His name is Tony Rodrigues. He's a secret space program experiencer, and I would call him a survivor. I think after this show, you're going to realize just how tough this guy is for the stuff that he's endured. And I met this gentleman at the Star Knowledge Conference in Pickstown, South Dakota in October of 2024. I saw his presentation. And with all the crazy things involved with the secret space program, the thing that really stood out to me was this idea of magic and how magic is, it's part of human history, secret societies, this kind of thing, witches, warlocks, sorcerers, that kind of thing. But that somehow this magic is now progressed into space, into future technology. And there's a huge crossover between magic and technology, in my view. And we're going to get the lowdown with Mr. Rodrigues right now. Tony, welcome to the show.
Brett, thanks for having me, man. It's great to finally connect after we met.
It's been way too long. I didn't think it would take this long. It's funny how life works, but you're here and I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so, ironically, it's April 10th today. And while your memory apparently is a little bit fuzzy, April 14th or 15th is when you were abducted at age 10, somewhere right
15th,
there.
1982.
So this is almost the 44th year anniversary to the day of that.
I don't think of it usually like that, but
I
it's
just
true.
noticed that when I was setting up the show. I'm like, oh my God, so that's right around the same time this all started for you 44 years ago.
I didn't realize it at first, but I went back and I thought, how do I say it? I'm always trying, the stuff I remember is out there, and I'm always trying to remind myself that it's true because I justifiably get scrutinized and attacked. And so people are always, holding my feet to the fire, and you should. I'm not complaining. But one of the days I thought, man, I remember a lot about that time. And I went back and looked at my school, my old school, Lincoln Elementary in Willis, Michigan, Southern Michigan. And they have a 5 day break for Easter every year.
Okay.
And after the 5 day break is when they had the science fair. And in that year, because Easter changes, the date changes radically. And I looked, and in that year, sure enough, I had the 5 day break right before we went back for the science fair on the 14th, April 14th. And so the 15th, I could be getting the days a little 15th, 16th, 17th. Yeah. So on the 15th, I was taken Thursday night that week in April of 82. But the other thing that I did was I remember that it was cold and snowy and icy that week up until Friday night, which is, it says in my book, the rains came. It just says the rains came. It doesn't say, but it was cold until Friday, and then it got into the 60s. We had a rain come through. And I looked back at the weather reports, and it was like I remembered it. So I remembered it, and then been telling my story for years, and then decided to go back and look at it. So I don't want to get off track, but for me personally, that was like it was another validating point, you
Right.
know.
Well, I mean, mind control is a serious issue, and recovering memories is paramount to perceiving your own reality first before you can tell other people. You got to make it make sense to yourself first. That to
True.
me, that's got to be the toughest part about this whole thing.
Oh, right. So a lot of people don't have any self-doubt, and they're talking about their stories. They have zero proof. And I would have never gone this far had I not dug up some evidence. So I've got a long list of things that I experienced and remembered that don't make sense any other way than it being true. A lot of people are coming out saying there's screen memories, and they're really trying to explain guys like me away these days. But none of it really makes sense to put screen memories in there for something that turns out to be nothing for literally thousands of people. Doesn't make any sense at all. Doesn't hold water.
Although I think that does happen.
Well, they do have the technology, so to
Right.
influence memories. But in my case, when I look at what I went through, what I remember, and what I've done with it, it just doesn't make any sense that they would give me screen memories and then fight me on them. So, in other words, if you're going to give somebody screen memories, you're going to give them memories so that they affect change in your favor. Not somebody you give screen memories to and then they go to one of the locations and then you attack them and try to silence them. And, like that's what's happened. So, I've been I made it without getting any kind of heavy influence in my testimony for the first 7 years, 6 years. And then in the last 2 years, since I physically found physical evidence in Ukraine, I went there and found physical evidence of a 20 and back. That's when I seem to have caught the attention of certain agencies. And I'll leave it at
Right.
that.
Okay. Yeah. Otherwise, you're just another wacko dude that's spewing a bunch of crap, and then they don't have to worry about people like that.
No. And like I said, why would they instill memories in a wood floor worker? Why wouldn't they do a senator? If you're going to put memories, you're going to take the time to abduct somebody and give them screen memories, you would give it to somebody that mattered more than me.
Right. Okay. Well, and I've seen several interviews now. I've seen you speak, and whether you are or aren't have screen memories, I feel like you're very sincere about your perceptions, and that's compelling.
Thank
And
you.
so why would anybody risk their reputation talking about this kind of stuff if they didn't feel that it was true? I think
My
that's
wife,
okay.
my wife couldn't do it. She put up with it for 6 or 7 years, and we divorced. My children were heavily picked on at school. Hey, my
I can
kids
imagine.
would have other kids say, "I saw your dad on YouTube," and so there was a huge price to pay. It's hard for me to find a regular job. I have to self-employ. So there's a huge price to pay by coming forward. And believe me, there's a lot of people with so-called, I mean, if you want to call it screen memories, but memories of the same thing. There's been a lot of thousands of people have contacted me, and most of them will not go public.
Right.
So what difference, what would that do by instilling fake memories in somebody if nothing happens from it? It's just a waste of their time. I
It would
think
seem
aliens that can go faster than light have better things to do.
it would seem to be like, well, I think you and I will agree that there is some kind of a public relations program, disinformation programs, and I think mind control might be part of that. I think it's logical that it would be. But
Yes.
your point still stands. It's like they're traveling across the galaxy. They're trading with other worlds. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. There's so much other bigger stuff going on. It seems like such a very small, insignificant thing to just mind control one person or even several people on that level. It's
Yes.
just not, it doesn't seem to be fruitful in terms of a PR campaign.
Yeah, really, where's it going to go?
Okay.
Is the juice worth the squeeze? And it's not. Um,
I like that.
a lot of people, man, you touched on something I can't remember. You touched on something I wanted to mention, but we can move
It'll
on.
come back around. It will. That's how these things work, right? You
Yeah.
start talking and flowing. Okay, so you've been on many shows. Just give us a quick history of how you came into being an experiencer of this stuff, and then that'll bridge off to a few other things.
When I was a kid, I was in great. You know what? I like to think I'm getting good at this. When I was a kid, I was in a school, public school in southeastern Michigan, just under Ann Arbor, Michigan, in that area. And a kid came to school in a limousine, which was not typical for our farmers area school. And we were in the talented and gifted program, and we did not get along. He said, "My dad's an Illuminati. What's your dad do?" Excuse me. And I picked on him. And after Easter break, the talented and gifted program were the kids that got to enter exhibits into the science fair in the cafeteria. His dad came in to be a judge. And in the cafeteria that morning, Wednesday, I believe the 14th of April, 1982. It could be off a day. I could be scooting the days. It's been a long time since I looked it up.
Yeah, yeah.
He pointed me out to his dad and he said, "Dad, that's that boy I told you about that, picked on me and ruined my confidence." And they had a conversation about me. And the following day, the Thursday night, I woke up with an ET in my room and I was abducted. Went through an abduction experience, which is pretty common to what people experience. And then I lived what is called a 20 back. I lived for 20 years in programs. I had no memory of where I came from. I woke up completely with amnesia. I had no idea who I was or where my mom and dad or was. And I woke up in Inyo, California in a remote viewing and psychoenergetics research program, which I found documents supporting. I found the place. I went back. Is exactly how I called it out. Long story, but a great deal of evidence. In fact, remote viewing is what I do for a living nowadays. And then from there on to into Peru for 2 years as a psychic, up to Seattle, and then sold off when I was about 16 into the secret space program where I went to the moon, to Mars, and a place called Ceres, which is in between Mars and the asteroid belt. I lived there for about 12 years, better than a decade. And at the end of my 20-year stint, they put me back, however they did it with exotic technology. And I went back to the moon and went through a bunch of surgeries and processes. And I woke up back in my 10-year-old body, back in 1982, in my bedroom the following morning, April 16th, 1982, Friday morning. And I got up and went to school, and I was a completely different person. I was emotionally destroyed. I was a different person altogether. I got lost in school. I didn't recognize my toys in the room. It felt like I had been physically gone for 20 years, even though I was taken on a Thursday night and woke up in my bed a Friday morning. So that's the phenomenon we're talking about. And my whole life and then in 2015, I didn't have any memories after that. Few, just memories of the abduction, the first 30 minutes or so. I always had those memories. But after in 2015, when I was 43, I got an MRI scan on my head. And about 10 days later, all the memories came back. And I started researching them, going, oh my God, I was totally distraught, like um, in complete shock when the memories came back, like years of memories, people I knew, my career, being in love, being hurt, being abused, traveling everywhere, and then the places I remembered, which I had no idea of, I went on the map and found, and I remember them exactly. And I've gone back there. I've gone with film crews and been able to tell people like, hey, there's big rocks up there around the corner. There's things that I know that I just shouldn't know. And so that's been the case. And I started talking about it publicly in 2016. And I thought I would just say it once and go home. And here I am in 2020, 10 years later, still talking about it.
So magnetic resonance imaging, MRI, triggered your memories. So some kind of a magnetic field opened up
Well,
your brain.
so the reason I mentioned that when I got my memories back, um, I didn't think about it. But months later, I was working with Dr. Sala, Dr. Michael Sala from exopolitics.org. And we had been going back and forth for some months, and he was questioning me and researching the things I was telling him to see if I was legitimate. There were things I told him that only other insiders knew that I didn't know. He didn't make it aware to me for years after that I identified the submarines as spaceships, the converted submarines. But he said, have a look at these, the Mars records. Michael Ralph, if I'm saying it right, Ralph, his last name, and then I forget the other guy. One guy used kinesiology and got his memories back from working on Mars in a 20 and back. And Michael
Interesting.
Rolfe got an MRI scan. And I was reading the PDF. And I went, wait a minute, I got an MRI scan. I looked up my medical records, and it was 10 days before the memories came back. So I think it's greater than a coincidence.
Um, Absolutely fascinating. So, you know, what do you think about Corey Goode saying that he invented the whole secret space program 20 and back thing?
I think personally, in my opinion, Corey Goode is an hacker, and I think he was infiltrating other people's real testimonies in a get-rich scheme to use IP. And he was working with other people who I met. I met Corey Goode in 2016 in Shasta, and he was ran from me. I told him who I was, and he turned around and damn near ran. And somebody else that he was working with, a Hollywood producer, introduced himself. They handed me, it was really strange that day at that conference. He said, we did the same to Randy Kramer. He said, come over here and sit. I want you to meet this guy. He's really big in the program in Hollywood and everything. You got to meet this guy. Bearded guy, heavy set, older white gentleman. Said, this is Steve. And he goes, here's your pad and paper. Here's your pad and paper for you to take. And I was like, what do I need this for? He's like, to take notes. And I was like, all right, whatever. He said, we're giving them to everybody. Everybody's got them. And I said, okay. Fast forward many years later, after Corey's tried suing everybody and patenting everything, he put out on his Telegram channel that he was going to sue Tony Rodrigues and Randy Kramer, that his producers saw us both taking copious notes of his information at conferences, that I was stealing his info. And I believe it was the other way around. Because the order of things that I said came before what he described, and I thought I was being validated by him. I told Dr. Sala privately over the phone the shape of the spaceships that I remember. Uh, Black, sleek, like stealth with a pointed front and a rounded back end. And then about a month later, his art came out and he said it. And then he said it, he claimed it as his IP. So I think he was spying on people. I think that his early on, he talks about being in I forget, like a WhatsApp group or some group of experiencers. And I think, and he admits being a hacker, and he was using Red Torch, a hack program. I believe he was spying on me the whole time. So I'm saying this on the record, but I don't care anymore because I really have I really have learned over the years that it was very disrespectful, a lot of his actions. And I
Well,
feel that he was intercepting information and then trying to brand it as his own in a get rich scheme.
and you can just go to YouTube and see his 6-part deposition that he gave during the legal proceedings with Jay Widener and others. I think it was Emery Smith. There's a couple other people there. I forget. There were 6 people, I think. And he just comes right out and says that it's a figment of his imagination. I mean, man,
Well, he was on the stand. I think the information he was giving out was legitimate, though, but he was taking it from other people,
okay,
like such as myself back then and
right.
Dr. Sala. And so I think it was a coordinated effort. I think somebody was aware that people were getting their memories back like an explosion of people like me that had their memories back, which is true. There are thousands of people that remember a 20 and back. And I think they were getting ahead of it, and he did exactly what you would think a program would do, and that's scare people from coming forward because under the threat of being sued and getting in trouble and etc.
So it's good to hear Michael Sala's doing some vetting of the people that he's interviewing, because he did that the whole first book he did for his secret space program series was on Corey Good. Almost the whole book was on Corey Good's testimony. And it's like, hey, I have nothing against Michael Sala. He's a nice guy. I've met him before, but he dropped the ball on that one research wise, vetting.
Well, not if he was being spied on.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying. So people are unaware of how easy it is. So since that's happened, the other thing is I've had people in my personal life hack my phone. I've had people that worked against me hack my phone. It's a way of life when you're on YouTube, if you're an experiencer.
Right.
But Dr. Sella really grilled me back then. I mean, he asked me hundreds. It went on for about 9 to 10 months over
Okay.
the phone and through emails that he vetted me. But I don't think he does it anymore. I think the people on the show nowadays it's minimal vetting.
Right. Well, I mean, on the one hand, you only got so much time in the day. On the other hand, you're a journalist and you have to do so much, at
People
least
can
a minimum standard of research. So,
people can do their own vetting at some point.
right. Right. Okay. So, the Nazis, this is one of the things I love about your talk. There's Nazis, there's UFOs, there's magic, all wrapped into one. It's just, that's like
Technology.
my wheelhouse right there, right? So, but then you throw in AI and time travel into the mix, and a lot of really weird scenarios come up. So I'm looking at this as like the Nazis left the Earth at some point, apparently, because you've experienced some kind of a Nazi culture off world. Um,
Deutsch.
it makes me think, okay, you can clarify or correct me, that's fine.
Yeah, they
Um,
didn't go by the name Nazi, even though it was that era, the World War II Nazi era of Germany. It would say like, if a group of the U.S. government broke off nowadays, they'd be Americans. They wouldn't be Democrats or Republicans. So we talk about
right,
the Nazis. It's a Nazi party. It's like saying the Democrats went up there. It's not the case. Americans went. So, and they refer to themselves as the Deutsch, not German. So they
okay,
think that the Ceres Colony, which are Nazi Germans basically, and it's very similar to a military ran society. Um, really, we had a big thing about this 100 year or the 30 years war in 1600s, and they identified as Deutsch, and they said that they had claim to most of Europe, like all the way over to Denmark, like bigger than Germany.
hmm.
So that was their belief in that. But
I can
okay,
see culturally maybe how that happened, because the German cultures bled off all in all directions in Europe. Interesting. Okay, so you know, so it's maybe it's not Nazis, and I stand corrected, but yet it seems that that kind of mentality, I've heard you describe in past interviews, it's they're basically running slave trade up there, um,
yes,
right?
and
Go
it's
ahead.
the same rules as the Third Reich. So whatever you want to
Okay,
call it, Fourth Reich or Fifth, it's the same rules they had. It's a military government, military ran government. They have society with their own core people. They were doing selective breeding in order to extend life. They had programs for people to marry in terms of genetics, and then they were bringing in people that were 20 and back from Earth, like myself, all over Earth, Europe, all over the place, America, and we were slave labor. I was essentially slave labor up there. That's correct.
Okay, so it leads me to believe that that mentality, whether they're Nazis or not, that authoritarian mentality, is kind of timeless, and maybe it's like the standard setup for the dark forces to move into a world, set up a society where they could propagate that philosophy, get the humans to do it for them, or wherever world they're on, whatever beings are there, to incorporate that into their own thinking, so that it looks like they're the ones propagating it. Really, there's this force that's maybe seeding this idea in different worlds and then raising it up like a crop kind of thing. That's it.
Possibly. Possibly. I'm not I think that they and also so the part of my story that we haven't talked about is I end up being working on a ship that was based on an interstellar craft that was based on Ceres. And we were doing trade missions, we were trading cargo and such. The Ceres colony was very aware that their way of life was not welcome in most places. So there were many species out there. They were not allowed to go to Venus. They were not allowed to go to Saturn. They were not allowed to go to Pluto. They were not allowed to go to many places, even in the solar system, because they had slave labor. So their way of life was regarded as primitive to many species out there. That being said, they still were able to do business with a lot of places, and they didn't care, essentially. But we were trading tech or goods for technology. That was the ship's mandate. And so, yes, I presented on, in 2022, I think, and GSIC, I presented on this economy of a breakaway civilization and how ultimately slave labor is self-defeating, and at a certain level will it become obsolete, is what I think will happen.
I like to hear that, right? I think it's been an issue on Earth for a really long time, and it's used in all kinds of propaganda off into the future about different cultures and different races, or technically we're all one race, right? But
A,
different.
a lot of people are unaware that as of this moment, Brett, between you and I and everybody watching, there are more people living in slavery on the earth today than there were when it was legal. So slavery, there are about 400,000 people in slavery in the United States today.
Like,
Slavery.
are you talking about debt slavery, or are you talking about
No,
actual
I'm
service?
talking about they do not have the ability to choose when they go poop or pee or what they eat, nothing. They are slaves. And then throughout the world, it's like something like 50 million. 6 out of 1,000 people on the planet, 6 out of every 1,000 people on the planet are living in slavery today. So we point at the Nazis and we point at the Americans back in the day and say, oh, you were slavers. But it's more prevalent today than it ever was. And so that was part of my talk I did. I did a lot of research about it because I was getting beat up saying that I had been in slavery in the sacred space program. A lot of people were writing me. I had people that were very upset that I mentioned it. And so I made a presentation to kind of set the record straight. In the Civil War days, in the slavery days, when it was the South, when they broke off, and it was originally made illegal in the North, and still they were having slavery in the South for a period of a few decades.
Sure.
When that happened, the economical uh, obsolescence of slavery presented itself. So on a plantation, there's a bunch of 200 slaves. The owner says, "Look, we need shoes. You two go and make shoes." And they would go and procure leather and all the stuff, things, and spend a month or 2 months and make everybody on the place a pair of shoes. Okay, by hand. In the North, where there was no slavery, they built a shoe factory because you couldn't do it economically any other way. It was too expensive to make people one pair at a time or two people to make shoes for everybody. So they created a factory and the price of shoes dropped and somebody profited. And so the economy, the overall economy benefited from having to pay people in a factory to make enough shoes to be profitable to afford the pay. So it basically the economy of slavery, if you're not in an isolated colony in space, but you're in a large area, a large population, slavery just doesn't work. And so Sorry if I'm sorry, man. I'm on a tangent and I don't mean to be like that. So, but
No, this is absolutely fascinating, and that's how these conversations go sometimes. I think that's where the magic happens, is it just goes where it naturally wants to go. So, and just to your point, the Africans themselves were running slaves on their own people long before Europeans got there. So, I mean, it seems to be some kind of a universal thing that's a certain level of spiritual growth, and then you can't get to a higher level of spiritual growth until you do away with that. It seems like.
it seems like it. There's a lot of people currently in the Congo that are living in slavery. Like I said, slavery is rampant across the Middle East and Africa, and like even in the United States. Like nobody's hands are clean here, and it's a big dirty secret that nobody wants to acknowledge. So, like I said, we're pointing fingers at other people. We got three pointing back at us.
Right? There
So
you go.
that's what I'm. That's my point with that. It's sad. And when I learned that, when I researched it and I learned all that, it was very sad to hear.
Yeah, us humans, right? We're pieces of work. But I don't want to go down that one too far because I got up so many other questions for you.
Yeah, let's go. Let's rock.
Okay, so when did the secret space program start?
I think it's been here the whole time. I think we were landed here from the secret space program at some point, but the American one started after World War II, and the German one started before World War II. I always tell people that World War One was about money, and World War II was about interstellar flight, faster than light travel. And I believe that's the case. I'm not sure. I mean, that's my opinion, and I'm not 100% sure, but the Ceres colony seemed to have been built somewhere around the 30s or 40s. The buildings were about that old, and it looked like a lot of buildings inside. And this is underground in caverns inside the planetoid Ceres. The buildings were old European construction, like marble steps and iron, and it was rusty. It was aged.
You know, the late great Wendell Stevens. I had the privilege of talking to him a few different times, and he told me that in 1924, I believe it was, that the Japanese and the Germans teamed together and actually made it to Mars.
I would believe that. Yeah.
Right? So it goes back that far before the Nazis, to your earlier point,
Before World War II.
and before
Yes.
World War II. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So much stuff is going on. But you alluded to my next question too: is did the secret space program start off world? That was going to be one of my questions, and would guess by a previous answer that you'd say yes.
Well,
That's the way you contact other worlds, is through a secret space program.
I think that our entire existence here on the planet, I think we are aliens here in the first place, humans, that we were seeded here. I mean, this is again another personal opinion, but I don't think that we evolved here. The official story I think is whack, and I don't think we evolved here. I think us ETs put us here, and we got to a certain point, and I think the Nazis acquired anti-grav technology by one means or another and went out there first in the 30s. And then I think the United States and Russia went out there in the 40s or 50s. And I think there is an Asian program. I think there's an United Nations space program. I think there's a joint United States, Australia, and UK program. And they're all going out there and they have radically different levels of technology, and they're all trying to get better technology. It's a race, and um, I don't know. I think there's a lot more to it than even I know.
And so leave it to humans to bring their squalor on Earth out into space, right? And all the competition and yeah.
Well, I want to say this. I don't know. There are very world-renowned researchers that say that everybody that in space that has faster than light travel is benevolent. And I
Okay.
know for a fact that that's BS. That's just not the case.
Okay.
So we are not primitive overall. Most people in the world today just want peace and to get on with their life. So there's a certain intelligence level that once you get in humans where we're peaceful and very, very, I don't know, I want to say advanced, but very agreeable. Same as ETs. My experience in space, when I lived on Ceres Colony, we had ETs visiting. I worked alongside certain ETs. They're people just like us. There's no discernible difference. In fact, a lot of them are snobby. And so, yeah, we're not super primitive, that we don't belong up there. We belong up there. And I guess that's, I don't have the words, man. I don't have the words to say it, but I think a lot of people think that just because aliens can travel, that they're noble and
Right.
virtuous and benevolent. And I'm here to tell you, there are many that are like that, but it's a bunch of BS. It's a jungle down here and it's a jungle up there. It's nature. It's not benevolent or malevolent. It's not like that.
Okay. So, to your point, there's this idea of magic, and Arthur C. Clarke had this definition that magic to a primitive people is really just higher technology to an advanced people. I'm paraphrasing. Um, Give us your definition of magic and how have you experienced that out off world or even on Earth, I guess.
Well, we were aware that there are species that don't need technology. Um, hang on a second. Hang on 1 second. Sorry.
All right, as we wait for Tony Rodrigues to get over his video issues. Let me just. Oh,
Sorry about that.
okay, no, that's okay.
I had an emergency. I had to say something over there. Sorry.
Did it
Um,
involve expletives?
so not quite close.
Okay, all right. Just checking.
Um, there are species that don't need technology to travel between stars. They can do it with consciousness. There are species that could take matter and by the amount of consciousness that they had, change it into other matter. So in order to change a strawberry into a banana or a screwdriver into a hammer mentally, the Ceres colony was fully aware of that. So that it looks like magic to us, but it's an ability of consciousness to map things at an atomic level and just to be aware of things. The universe is layers with membranes between realities. You can phase in and out of different forms of reality, and there's a level of mentality that can manipulate our reality. So that looks like magic. I don't know if this is directly to your question, a direct answer to your question.
Well,
I think it's along the lines.
it's definitely along the lines. I would just say to be more generic, magic is just manifesting a desired outcome in a given situation.
Well, I would say manipulation of reality with conscious thought, with consciousness, rather than so when we have technology, we're manipulating reality with physical um, things. So that's technology. If I could turn on a flashlight, all of a sudden the room gets light in it. It's not magic, it's tech. But doing it without technology, with conscious thought, you can kind of map the room mentally. Is the kind of I don't know if my analogy is going awry.
Well, it's leading to my next question, so that's good. I read a book a while back that had a quote from Chief Seattle, the Indian chief in what is now Washington State, and he basically just said that the white man's magic was greater than theirs, but he was referring to us having rifles and trains, steam trains. He was referring to the technology that he referred to that as magic, and that was just something that I just pondered that for such a long time. And I guess the crossover is that technology is a way to manifest a desired outcome if you don't have that mental capacity that you just described.
It's true. That's an amazing, eye-opening way to look at it. But yeah, technology, and especially nowadays, it gets smaller and smaller. And look at what we can do now compared to 50 years ago. Look at what we can do. And the world's changing super fast.
Right.
Technology, it's going to happen even faster. Um,
But we'll get to that here probably in the next segment because we got about 10 minutes left in this segment.
sure.
Early on in this segment, you mentioned that this child that was your schoolmate, his dad was Illuminati. And after the child told him, "Oh, Tony making fun of me," whatever it was, all of a sudden there's an ET in your room. So knowing how Illuminatis, Freemasons, lots of secret societies use magical rituals to invoke demons or whatever, maybe aliens or demons, but that alien shows up right after that happens. That to me, there's a connection there. How do you
They
feel?
were in a craft. So there was a craft outside the house. There was a light beaming down. I could see outside the window.
But did
There
the
was a bright
Illuminati
light.
guy summon an ET?
Yeah,
Like, we'll
he's
show that
told
kid,
his son, he said, we'll put him in, he said something weird, like, we'll put him in a thing. And his son said, I don't think he deserves that. And he said, well, you got to learn to something. And it was the next day. It was that Thursday. So that was Wednesday. That's when the talented and gifted met every day, was Wednesdays too. So it's all, the official schedule is the same way I remember it. But yeah, Thursday, so an hour, 36 hours later or so, in the middle of the night, a gray ET in my room. I reached up and touched it, and I was abducted. So he was somebody that had access to this system, this access to the society that lives among us that has access to space. So security clearance, basically. And he just threw me in the side door. He threw me in the back door into the program. I was not groomed for it. And it's probably why I remember, because I wasn't supposed to be in it. And they just
okay,
threw me in, and I was slave labor for 20 years. And I did come back a lot more humble than when I had left the following day. I was very humbled.
that's compelling. Okay, so it turns out we got like 2 minutes left. Sorry. Can you hold up your books for our viewers to see?
Sure.
Do you have copies of them?
Got a mess going on here. This is the first, my first book, Ceres Colony Cavalier, was a bestseller. And this tells the whole 20 and back. And it left a lot of questions. So I wrote this book, which is kind of more the spiritual side of it. Project Starmaker was a 10-year stint, and it's kind of like goes like this in between. It's a side story. It's not a sequel, it's
Okay.
kind of a filler. And then when I went to Inyokern and I found physical evidence, I got a lot of memories back from the remote viewing and psychoenergetics. And I wrote my third book, Beyond Sight, The Hidden History of Remote Viewing and Psychoenergetics. And this book got me in trouble. So this was the one that I had a lot. My whole life got turned upside down from it. Um, Whatever. I don't like to touch on the details, but I basically they pulled me, they jerked on me, my collar, and said, "Shut up about some of that stuff." So I teach remote viewing, TonyRodrigues.com, and on my Patreon, and that's what I do. That's great for the first segment, man.
Right. And you're doing your job well if you're getting in trouble. That's what,
That's right. Thank you.
yeah. So
I got in a
kudos to
lot of
you.
trouble.
Yeah, and I think you were also real quick, you were featured in A Lifetime of Science Behind the Green Door, that documentary.
Absolutely. The Journey to Truth documentary, I believe it's going to be out on Amazon Prime at some point, but it's on their Patreon, Journey to Truth. And
Okay.
you can get it for like 14 bucks. It's an excellent documentary on the secret space program. And there are many
Okay.
people on there, not just me.
All right. And we're going to get more into remote viewing and maybe a little more magic and some other really juicy topics in the next segment. Tony, thank you. And we'll be right back with more, folks.